Molly would like to know, what conditions had to be present to create the December tornado a few years ago?
Molly, that's a great question. A lot of times, as you know, tornadoes usually occur in the springtime, months of March, April, and May. But a December tornado, while not unheard of, is very, very rare. That tornado that day was on a very unusual day where temperatures reached almost 70 degrees, very warm, unusually warm for that time of year. A lot of moisture came up from the Gulf of Mexico, and then we had cold air coming in from the north. Those two air masses clashed. That created severe thunderstorms, and the result was a tornado.
Carrie wants to know, what makes a snowstorm become a blizzard?
Carrie, that's a great question, and it's just a technicality, really. The winds have to gust or be sustained at 35 miles an hour, and there has to be very heavy snow for a period of at least 3 hours to make a blizzard.
Luke would like to know, how is hail created?
Great question. Hail forms as we get very, very strong updrafts and downdrafts within a thunderstorm. So you get a water droplet, let's say, that gets caught in this violent updraft. It's lifted way up into the thunderstorm, and that water droplet freezes solid into basically a piece of ice. It then gets very heavy and falls down in a downdraft into the middle areas of the thunderstorm, gets coated with liquid water, and gets caught back up in the updraft once again and lofted to great heights, and that next layer of water freezes into another layer of ice. The process continues until that hailstone gets so big that even the strongest updrafts can't keep it up in the air and it drops down. We had hailstones fall outside the Weather Service office this spring that were about this big.
Allison wants to know, what do the different colors mean on the radar?
The different colors, Allison, actually tell us the intensity of the rainfall or hail in a particular thunderstorm. If you see blues and greens, that's fairly light rainfall. If you see reds, that can be very heavy rainfall, or it could actually be hail.
Stephanie would like to know, do you work with people around the world? And if so, how do you understand them in their language?
Stephanie, that's a great question. Before I came to the National Weather Service office in St. Louis, I was the Deputy Director of the Central Pacific Hurricane Center in Honolulu, Hawaii. And one of the great things about that job is we had to coordinate with hurricane centers from other parts of the world. So we would coordinate, as a storm moved in from the east, we would coordinate with hurricane forecasters in the city of Miami. Now, of course, they're English speakers, so that wasn't a problem. However, when the hurricane would pass the international date line west of the islands, we would have to pass it off to the Hurricane Center located in Tokyo, Japan. So I had the pleasure a couple of times of calling that office in Tokyo, and the first thing I would say would be Honolulu English, and they would get someone that spoke English, because unfortunately I don't speak Japanese very well. So luckily for us in the United States, English is almost a universal language, so usually some scientists in that office will be able to communicate with us.
Pillar wants to know, how do you name a storm?
Well, Pilar, at the National Weather Service, the only names we give are to tropical cyclones, hurricanes. So for instance, if a hurricane forms in the Gulf of Mexico, we'll start every season with the A storm, okay? It'll be Abby or Alan or something like that. And the names rotate male to female, A, B, C. They'll start a new list every year, so that, and they'll work their way all the way down through the alphabet at times. In 2005, we had so many hurricanes, it set a record, that we actually had to start with Greek names, Alpha, Beta, Gamma. That was a record-setting year.
Tim would like to know, what got you interested in being a meteorologist?
So the reason I got interested in meteorology was a long time ago, in 1964, a hurricane named Hilda took part of the roof off of our house. I lived in South Louisiana. And whereas my older sister and my other two brothers were terrified and crying that we were going to get hurt, I thought it was the coolest thing ever. So I had my face pressed up against the glass of the window, and my mother was pulling me back, and I was hooked from then on, because it was so incredibly powerful, and I'd never seen anything like that. So that fascination really keyed my interest in meteorology, and eventually had the privilege of going to school and getting a degree in meteorology, and then another privilege of actually working and getting paid to do what's basically my hobby.